This is kind of just a quick slide of some of or actually the product offering that SVF has as far as valves in general. So we have our high purity line, which I'll talk today about our CleanTech side. We have our cryogenic series ball valves. We have our steam and thermal fluids. We have our fire safe valves. We have a full line of automation and controls. Rounding up back to the top, we got a line of exotic alloys like Hastelloy, Alloy 20, Manel, and we have high pressure valves that go up to 6,000 psi, as well as we do offer some customized solutions depending on the requirements of the application. We provide solutions for the pharmaceutical industry, and Dan had mentioned BPE earlier. BPE SVF is kind of intertwined with the BPE standard. In the beginning, I think it was like around 1996 when BPE was first initiated. SVF was part of the committees that created the standard. BPE is the standard for bioprocessing equipment, and it's the one that calls out for all the materials, all the equipment, all the designs, requirements that go into the pharmaceutical industry. And that's why you have pharmaceutical or life sciences at the top of our markets served here. We also provide a lot of solutions for semiconductor, food and beverage, cosmetics and fragrances, petrochem, CNG, water and wastewater. Today, we're going to be focusing a little bit more on the food and beverage, semiconductor, and cosmetic and fragrances side of things with our CleanTech offering. So this is CleanTech. CleanTech is our, basically it's our clean valve for the food and beverage, semiconductor, and other sanitary applications. This design really is what we did to have a solution that is a little, that differentiates really from the pharmaceutical BPE valve that we have, and this is the offering that we have for the other non-pharma industries. What we've done also is we've tried to, here we go, make the CleanTech solution a little bit similar to our BPE solution, because we have learned quite a few, I'll say we have learned a lot in serving the pharmaceutical industry. And we've taken some of those concepts and applied it to our designs for our CleanTech line, which is, again, the other sanitary applications. Part of that is this whole thing about drainability. Within the pharmaceutical side, there's a aspect of BPE that talks about fully drainable for the product line, not just for the valves, but for the entire design. So when we're looking at our CleanTech valve solution, we apply the same design, basically making sure that the tube ID is the same from one side of the valve all the way to, from upstream to downstream. Everything is the same. Even the ball ID, everything is it's completely a full port, if I may say. So that adds again to the fact that if once the system shuts down, it's designed to be able to drain out everything out of that product. Another side that we kind of adapted as well on our CleanTech solution is the surface finishes. Now, as you guys know, with surface finishes, typically you're looking at, I'll say, about a 20 RA finish for these clean applications. Surface finish, for you guys that don't know, it's basically the smoothness of the interiors of the material. You're looking at the end connection, the ball, and you're making sure that the surface, when you put it under a magnifying glass, you're minimizing all the peaks and valleys that are located and found on those surfaces. One thing to be able to understand also is any surface, no matter how smooth it is, if you put it under a magnifying glass, there's going to be always peaks and valleys. What we're trying to create here is a solution that minimizes those peaks and valleys. So typically a surface like a metallic surface that you guys have with our SB9 CleanTech series is polished a couple different ways. One, of course, is you're doing some mechanical polishing, which is really creating or using an abrasive surface to be able to break down those peaks and valleys. And what we do afterwards is we typically run a profilometer, which is a device that measures the average of these peaks and valleys and provides us with the RA, or the roughness average. A profilometer, it what it really looks like, it looks like a stylus that scrapes the surface of the metallic surface of the valve, and then it follows all the peaks and valleys um, of that material, and then provides you with a number. It reminds me sometimes of a the needle for a record player that kind of just follows the different crevices of that particular surface that it's measuring, and then it provides you with an average of those peaks and valleys. So it's kind of a neat instrument. Another thing we can do also to get to those smoother surfaces is a combination of a mechanical polish and an electro polish. Like I said, a mechanical polish typically is using an abrasive surface to scratch out, to smoothen out, or to remove those peaks, while an electro polish is typically a chemical way to do it. So basically, it's like a reverse plating where you put the material in a bath, you put some cathodes on it, and it pulls material from the surface of that um, component, so that you're getting less of those peaks and you're getting a more smoother finish. Typically, as I said, we provide the products at a 20 RA standard. With a combination of additional mechanical polishing or electro polishing, we can actually go down to about 5 RA if we need to. So what are the features that a CleanTech ball valve series has? Well, typically, as I said, when we go through this particular design of this valve, we looked at all the aspects of what a BPE or a pharmaceutical valve was, and we'd taken I'll say every design feature and placed it into this particular valve, so that we can have the most robust, best solution that we'll provide to the market. It's a complete 316 design, of course, fully drainable, like I mentioned, with that tube ID design. 20 RA is our finished, with the end connections that have tri-clamp or extended tube OD. This is what we actually call our ETO end. Uh, both offerings have encapsulated body seals to facilitate welding without disassembly. Of course, there's no welding on a tri-clamp valve. Extended tube ends, or this ETO ends, are designed for orbital welding, meaning like it has enough length on it so that you could be able to put your orbital weld machine without having to take the valve apart. It does have a built-in ISO 5211 mounting pad on it, so that you have a lot easier method of automating these valves. Also, it's more cost efficient to be able to do that without having a mounting kit or a bracket and a coupler. It is designed with blowout proof stems. We do have the option of cavity fillers on this particular series, as well as for the ETO ends, we add that boss for purge porting. So a couple of things that I've found when we're talking about the food and beverage, semicon, and cosmetics, is that there's a good discussion that we have about standard seats versus cavity fillers. In the pharma side, they actually typically want to stay on the standard seats, because they believe that it's easier to do a CIP or a SIP on it. There's less chance of residue or particulates being stuck on the cavity of the valve when they do the purging. And then what I found also on the food and beverage side of things is that they actually prefer the cavity fillers. Um, I'm not sure where the disconnect is between the two, but there's those two offerings that we have for the SB9 is available with both types of seats. I guess I should mention for those of you that don't know what the cavity filler is, what a cavity filler does is it takes it's a material that takes the space of all the basically all the interstitial space between the ball and the body of the valve, so that it kind of minimizes any other excess space in there and limits the amount of materials that are stuck within that body. I mentioned also the boss for purge porting. So on the semiconductor side, what we found also with this particular valve series is that they have sometimes a need for adding some purge ports into the valve ends. And what we've done is we've added this boss to have enough material on there so that we can drill the hole, polish it, and add some purge porting to it. And this typically is like a male VCR purge port, but we've done it in a few different types of connections as well. And what's shown on the picture here is the purge ports that are kind of pointed downwards from the valve. That's not necessarily the only solution there is. Of course, we can have it in either direction of the depending on what the customer or the application requires. Another thing as well is if the customer does not require two purge ports, we can provide it with one purge port on the upstream or one purge port on the downstream side. Again, it all depends on the requirements of the application. So kind of going back with all the standards that we adhere to with this particular series, I didn't mention yet that this particular valve, we also have the ability to oxygen clean or O2 clean according to CGA G4.1. The materials for the soft components, the seating materials, are USB class 6. It's ASME B1634 design, as well as API 598 for inspection and testing. And I did mention our ISO 5211 direct mounting pad on the valve.
Jay,
Yes,
can I jump in for just 1
of
second? Got a
course.
quick question about the cavity fillers.
Yeah,
Is the cavity filler seat also considered an encapsulated seat?
yes, it is.
Great. Cool. Perfect. Thank you.
Actually, I'll correct that myself. It encapsulates the ball, so it does kind of mean that it's encapsulated seating on the ball itself. But I did mention something also about encapsulated seals, which is a different thing, but that talks about the ability to weld in place.
Got it. Okay. Great. Thank you.
As far as materials on this SB9 CleanTech valve series, the body, ball, stem, and the tri-clamp ends are all 316 cast stainless steel CF8M. The ETO ends are CF3M, and we add the 316L there because typically the 316L side of things adds to the protection when you're for heat for when you're welding it. And then again, all the soft components are compliant with FDA, USDA, and 3A standards. Just I wanted to show a couple of applications where we've used our SB9 series. This particular one is a food distribution center. In fact, this one was creating, it's funny, this particular food center was creating dehydrated soup. It's like dehydrated chicken soup, I think. Yeah, dehydrated chicken soup um, in this particular plant. And they had byproducts, which is kind of funny when, because I visited this particular plant. They had a couple of different byproducts as they were going through their dehydration process. So their main product is this dehydrated soup. One of their byproducts is from the what do you call this, from the excess or the waste of creating this dehydrated soup. They were making it as ingredients to create some protein bars, and then the waste or the excess that's from the protein bars then goes in, and then they make dog food. So it's a very efficient system that I saw over there. But they were using our SB9s with our uh, uh, actuators, our easy torque actuators, along with our Nexus LP discrete limit switch and solenoid valve package. Another application that I kind of wanted to share also was this is going into, I think it's more on the cosmetics side of things. This was a plant that was building or was manufacturing toothpaste and mouthwash. And they were using our SB9 valves along with our Easy Torque actuators and Nexus ID controllers. And these Nexus ID controllers are Aussie controllers. If you're not familiar with Aussie, it's basically a system that allows you to control up to 64 discrete valves through your existing system or through Profibus or Modbus through the buses. And they were able to take our solution and kind of integrate it with their existing system, and everything was good to go from there. It was actually a nice solution. I did visit this plant as well, and as soon as you walk in the door, you just get hit with a eucalyptus or mint or whatever. It was a strong, nice, refreshing smell. We also have a lot of applications that go into the semicon industry. This is one of the systems that we built where they were actually looking at three-way valves, and we created these three-way valves that were kind of angled, and I kind of call them our spider valves because they do look like weird spiders as they had the kind of the legs coming out of them. Um, but these were created because of spacing. They didn't have enough space to be able to accommodate the piping and all that. So we created these angled ends to provide them a solution. So kind of rounding back again to our CleanTech offering, um, as I said, we've taken all the experience we have with BPE or pharma experience and put it into our CleanTech products so that we can address applications in food and beverage, semiconductor, cosmetics, flavors, fragrances, with a surface finish of 20 RA, the ability to oxygen clean and have it as silicon free, with live loaded stem seals, a blowout proof stem, and direct mounting for actuators with sizes from half inch all the way to 4 inch. One thing also that you can kind of get from the SVF offering is this support that you get with our engineering team as well as with our staff. It's really, if you have any requirements for drawings, 3D models, whether it's step files or CAD, we have the ability to build those and provide them to you, within 24 hours. We have spec sheets that are available on the website that provide you with all the materials, as well as all the applicable product information and the critical measurements like TopWorks or end-to-end dimensions, all available on our website. And what we're doing also is we're trying to provide a better solution or a faster solution for providing with 3D models rather than waiting this 24 hours. So we're trying to improve our response time on that.
Jay, got another
Yeah,
question.
sure.
Do we meet the 3A approval for the dairy industry?
So the 3A approval that we have is for the materials,
Got it.
not for the ball valve itself. It's a little bit more difficult to get the approval of a 3A on a ball valve, just because of all the, I'll say, all the nooks and crannies that a ball valve has inherently in its design.
Sure.
Um, and typically when we get into applications in the dairy side, where they're looking for something like that, what we normally see is them using other types of solutions, not necessarily the ball valve solution.
Okay. All right. Does that answer your question, Jim? Great. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jay.
Yep. Let's see. And then I was going to mention also as well, since we were kind of talking about some engineering help and customized solutions, we do have the ability to create customized products based on, applications. So if you and we provide that assistance from cradle to grave, from beginning to end of the application, and past that really is because our support doesn't stop when the product ships. It continues on until the product is dead, really. So that kind of rounds out our CleanTech uh, overview of the SVF product line. Um, are there any more questions?
Hey, Jay. Sorry about that. I was
Yeah, no
accidentally
worries.
muted. We got a question. What's the main advantage of the Quad 4 over the Easy Torque actuators?
Oh, that's a good question. So the Quad 4, and I kind of didn't mention it in this particular webinar, but the Quad 4 is a 4-piston actuator, 4-piston pneumatic actuator, while the Aero 2, or the Easy Torque, is a rack and pinion. It's a dual piston. The advantage of the Quad 4 is that because of the 4 pistons, it actually provides a little bit more torque with less space.
Okay.
So if they're and I'll say less space, also less weight in some instances. So if you're looking at an application that is a tri-clamp connection, or ETO connection, and you're dealing with tubing, you always need to have solutions that have less weight so that there's less stress on the tubing.
Okay, great.
Hmm.
Thank you. If there's any other oh, great. Got another follow-up here.
Hmm.
Does the Quad 4 direct mount like the Easy Torque to the
Yes, it does.
does it okay, like the SV9? Okay, great.
Yeah, so
What's
it
this?
the all our pneumatic actuators are actually have the ability to be mounted directly. They do have the ISO 5211 pattern as well, um, underneath on their bottom works.
Mhm.
So we are with the direct mounting pad of an SB9, we can put on a Quad 4 actuator.
Okay. What's the standard for changing actuators from fail close to fail open? Will this keep them clockwise to close?
Oh, so that's one thing on the Quad actuators. Um, the fail to close. Okay, so I'll go back first. Typically on a 2-piston actuator, you have the standard of opening is counterclockwise and closing is clockwise. And to be able to, if you're failed to close, you have to reverse that process so that it turns opposite. Um, that's industry standard, and of course, if a customer has it on their already installed and they just needed it to fail close, they can. If they don't if they don't care too much about adhering to the standard, they can remove the actuator, turn the valve so that it's in a closed position, put the actuator back, and it will work fine. It's just turning clockwise versus counterclockwise. On a quad actuator, you can't reverse the cams of those four pistons. So the reversing or the reversing or changing from clockwise to counterclockwise is cannot be done on a quad four. You still have the ability to have it as a fail to close, but the rotation of the actuator will remain the same as if it was a fail to open.
Okay. Does that answer your question fully, Andrew? All right. Great. Okay. Got that. All right. We are, if that's everything, we're gonna stick around for a few more minutes. If there's any more questions here, we love to field those. Jay's very good at them. I don't think I've ever heard him stumped once yet. So if you can play Stump Jay, get a prize.
Oh, let's not play that game.
Everyone
I'll
needs.
mention also because we were talking about actuators, with our actuator packages, as well as our limit switch packages, we do have options that are coded. For instance, actuators that are epoxy coated or nickel infused, or limit switches that are hermetically sealed, so that these solutions are typically good for washdown environments. And I've found also that in some cases in the food and bev side, there's a lot of washdowns or cleaning that's done. And so that's actually really important also to know that our products have the ability to be in a process with washdown requirements.
Okay, great. Doke. Well, not seeing anything else pop up here. So, if anyone has any questions that occur, I don't know if about you guys, but for me, usually my questions occur about 5 minutes after a webinar ends. So, if you do have anything, please email us. Um, a version of this video will be on our YouTube channel. The link will be in our follow-up email. But for people who attended as well as people who didn't, a recording of this webinar will be going out tomorrow. So you can just check your email for that. There's also a short survey if you wouldn't mind taking it. It's literally 2 questions. So please just do us a favor. Drop us a little, drop us a line. Other than that, we encourage people to sign up for our webinar series. We covered this and a bunch of other topics that are really useful for getting yourself more informed on the PVF industry as well as our offerings. And thank you all for your time. Thank you, Jay. He woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning to do this presentation, so we really
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much.
All right, thanks, Jay.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.